Welcome to The Frontier. The Frontier is an exploration of the post-COVID-19 consumer products landscape through the minds of the pioneers of the industry. Like all industries, the consumer products space is experiencing a massive shockwave as a result of COVID-19, and we created the Frontier video interview series to listen to and document for the broader community the perspectives from the field during this extraordinary time in history. My name is William Hood, and together with my co-founder, Jill Steib, we hope you will both enjoy and value the Frontier. Eric, it's so great to see you.
It is great to see anybody in person besides somebody of my family, yes. This is fantastic.
I mean, we've all been locked down for 12 weeks.
It's been that long. It feels like 6 months at this point.
So, Eric, I was talking to one of the leaders of the industry the other day, and he referred to you as a seasoned entrepreneur. I can think of many other words, but you're certainly very accomplished. You've disrupted two of the largest categories in the whole CPG industry. Firstly, the laundry category with Method, and successfully sold it to SC Johnson. And then, more recently, you went on to found and build Olly, which you recently sold to Unilever. And I believe you've created over $1 billion in value for your investors and shareholders over the years. So tell us how it all started.
Yeah, well, I think I'm really a one-trick pony, but that trick keeps working. So as long as the trick works, I guess I'll keep trying it. So my background is from advertising, and I started in London in the 90s as what was called account planner. And that was really the function that lived in between the consumer insight, the research piece, and the creative. And I was just very, very lucky that I ended up at this agency. They put me in the planning department. I had an American accent, a lot of American brands, so somehow that gave me a little extra credibility. And really what I learned in advertising was how to understand a consumer insight and translate that into a creative expression. And you'll see in everything we're doing, there's a common theme, which is there's a big consumer insight that the brand is based off of, and then we really bring that to life through great design and creative to create this emotional engagement, typically in categories where it hasn't existed before. So for Method, I also really admired Richard Branson, like all entrepreneurs. And I loved how he had a model. And I was like, well, his model is he just takes these categories and he applies an entertainment lens to it. So he takes an airline and makes it feel much more like an entertainment product than a transportation product. And so that kind of became my inspiration. So I didn't think I was smart enough to come up with a new idea. So I just started looking at consumer categories. And what I want to do is find a cultural shift the category missed. And my thesis was in between that would be the business opportunity.
You know, they say an American accent in London is the smartest guy in the room, and a British accent in New York or California is the smartest guy in the room.
So true.
Well, it's a good thing we're in America right now for your benefit. And just to expand on that a little bit, I mean, you call them tricks. I call them gifts. You have a lot of those entrepreneurial gifts. Translating insights is not easy, for sure. But, beyond that, what are some of your other strengths as an entrepreneur that you find gives you this success?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of them I've learned over the years, and I think it took me a while to appreciate some of them, because I don't feel like I'm good at anything in particular, so I've had to rely on other people who are really great. And so I've always had this big appreciation for finding people who are incredibly talented in their field. Maybe it was too much of watching the A-Team as a kid, of like a finely honed, for those of you who are millennials, go get the DVDs. A-Team is like the ultimate TV show around a highly dysfunctional and functioning team. But the A-Team, like, everybody had their core expertise, and then they worked together towards a common goal. So it's something I've really learned is how to assemble great leadership teams where everybody has their core expertise, and then to really empower that team. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, my goal is to really help set a vision, get the team aligned, and then kind of get behind them and support them. And I say, as a CEO, my job is to set up the assists, not score the goals.
I really admire you, Eric, for that, and I try every day to learn from that. How do you lead in an understated way and empower those around you to be the best they can be. Quite remarkable. Eric, when was it, and what were you doing, and where were you when you first realized that this pandemic was serious and that the world around us was going to change dramatically?
I kicked myself for not seeing it coming, because clearly we were dealing with the supply chain issues in January in China, and it was starting to impact other parts of our business internationally. And I don't know, we were just so busy at the time, but I kicked myself for being a little too naive of not taking it more seriously. The moment where I kind of had that, oh shit, like this is real, was sitting in a hotel in Chicago. It was my last business trip, and I was with colleagues from Unilever from different parts of the world who were really feeling it. And one of my colleagues who's Swedish, she just looks around, she's like, I think this is a time bomb about to go off. And understanding that the virus was already seeded in the US, nobody was taking it seriously. Our president was still calling it a hoax, and yet these other countries were, completely under siege from it already. That was the moment. And I think my first real behavior change was before getting on the flight at the United Club for the first time ever. I did not go for the buffet. I walked up to it. It's like, maybe not. And obviously in the coming days, it truly unfolded before our eyes.
It was quite remarkable. I had a weird sort of premonition. It was late February. I was in Los Angeles with Jill and our team. We were visiting a client, and Jill dropped me off at the airport to head back home. And as I was walking through LAX, end of Feb, we weren't yet in pandemic lockdown mode, but I had a really eerie sense that was the last time I was going to see Jill and my team for a while, and it was the last time I was going to travel for a while. And it was just this very strange premonition, which I've chatted with Jill about since, but just remarkable. And so what steps did you take with your business to adjust to the new reality?
Yeah, I mean, I got to really give Jerry Chester, our CEO, credit, because as we engineered the deal with Unilever, we structured it so he would take over as COO to CEO to give him, we couldn't ask him to stay on for a couple more years in a COO role, and it gave me an opportunity to step into a little bit more of a global role with Unilever, as well as being able to continue to focus some time on Welly. And again, right person at the right time of bringing somebody in who had that great operational rigor, because more than anything else, that's what it's taken to get through here. And we've been very fortunate. We had three things that were working for us. One was we already had very much a results-based operating system within the company, which is what we use our OKRs, which is simply our objectives and key results that are set at the company level, and they go through every individual within the company. So as everybody went to remote work, it really kept us focused on what do we need to achieve, and I think that made that transition fairly easy. The second is we already had a work from home policy for everybody on Fridays. I always found it very awkward of who gets to work from home, who doesn't, and method. And so from day one at Olly, we said, you know what, I want to work from home on Fridays, so let's all work from home on Fridays as long as we hit our results and our goals, we know it's working. So we already had all of the protocol in place to work very efficiently from a distance. And then the third piece is we had a business that is benefiting. It's a health essential. We sell products, immunity, stress, sleep, and so we're very fortunate that we're kind of on the right side of the ledger right now to pick up some tailwinds from COVID, and then we've got an organization that is able to execute well against that.
Speaking of that, what are some of the things you talk about, like working from home? What's another thing that you hope, or what is something you hope sticks? What is something that we've all learned during this time of COVID that you hope to carry forward with your teams?
Yeah, I think I'm really fascinated by this topic. The way I see it, we suddenly jumped forward to 2030, and we were already on this path, and we were stuck between two generational approaches to work. There was the generation ahead of me that was very much like your face time in the office is your value, right? First in, last out, like that badge of honor. And being seen in the office was really important. And then the generation that's behind me was like, hey, screen time is work time. Like I'm in front of my laptop. Where does it matter where I am right now? And we already had the tools to be pretty efficient for what I would argue is 80% of our work to do it remotely. And as a parent of 3 kids and trying to juggle everything, I was already pretty stretched with being in a physical office and demands of the workplace. So I'm excited that this, I think, has pushed us through this inefficient phase of 2 working systems. And what will emerge on the other side is just a much more fluid style work that is more efficient. And I think we'll start to see the office much more as a place of collaboration and culture building. And there are times where we all need to be together. And I think we will look at that time as much more valuable. And there's other times where, God, if I don't have to commute or go through the inefficiencies of being in an office or showering that morning, like I can wake up and be incredibly efficient. And I don't know about you, but I find I'm exhausted by 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'll say, I'm like, God, I feel like I didn't get much done today. And then I look at what I did. Well, I've been cranking since 6 a.m. So I'm excited for what comes out of this. I think we'll just be a much more efficient and healthier work style for those of us who are kind of in that knowledge worker space.
Eric, you talked about culture, and culture's been a huge part of the organizations you've built and run. I would argue it's created a lot of the value that you've created. Do you think, 2 questions. One, do you think the culture at Olly is suffering today, or method, because everyone's at home and they're not able to interact every day? And 2, do you think as we move towards that balance and the office is a place of collaboration, that culture can be maintained in the same way?
Yeah, it will be one of the bigger challenges. I mean, culture really is human behavior, and culture is something you feel, and it's really hard to do that without human beings being together in a space. So I think it's going to change in a couple ways. One is, I think relationships at work are going to become much deeper, and we saw some colleagues this weekend that up in Tahoe we went for a hike for who I haven't seen in a while, and like I think we're all just going to be tighter with our colleagues. We're going to have to rely on each other more. So culture as a whole will be impacted, but I think what will be much more positive will be these interpersonal relationships at work. I think we'll see a heightened sense of importance for those. And we're trying lots of little things. The Olly team, our P&E, which stands for People Environment, has done a great job of trying to help keep people connected. We've been doing virtual happy hours, putting different themes to it. They mailed everybody this great little succulent plant to grow. We're all in this together. And I think those little touches have gone a long way, but nothing can be replaced for all of us being together. So I've been thinking a lot about organizations that are highly dependent on culture, but have always been functioning remote. And you may laugh, but I think one of the best examples is like MLM, multi-level marketing, and direct sellers. And we've looked at doing a partnership with a few of them over the years. So I've attended some of their annual conferences where they fly everybody in. And it is just culture on steroids, where they're there to get everybody fired up. So I think there's going to be a greater shift to how we use our office and off-sites that are much more about the emotional bonding together than it is going to be the transfer of information.
Eric, how are you doing personally through COVID?
Depends on the hour. We were so, like most people, we were so overscheduled at the start of the year. January, February were just nuts, right? And when shelter in place first went into effect, it was like Christmas. So cancel everything. We were so excited, just to be home and be focused with the family and the novelty of it, of being able to cook. And it was, the first month was wonderful. Second month, we were in a groove. I think the third month we're ready for a little bit more normalization. My kids are craving to see their friends. We want to see family. Love to be back on a whiteboard with a group of people again, working through a problem. But I think, God, we're the lucky ones. We're generally, it's been very positive for us overall, and a great realization of what's important in this time out to kind of reflect. And I asked both kids and people at work, make a list of what won't change. as we start to return, we're never going to go back to what was before. That there will be a new normal. It won't look at what it did before, but as the busyness creeps back into our life again, what do we want to make sure we really hold on to that brings us great joy and happiness?
How's Jill holding up?
Well, she's moved into the treehouse for work. Sheltering in place with 3 children is not for the faint of heart. But it takes a very strong woman to be able to get through that with such grace as Jill has. And I'm very lucky to have such an amazing partner to help us all through this.
She's fantastic.
She's very special.
Fantastic.
Is she here?
He's just saying that because I'm back here and you can see me on camera. That's the only reason he's saying
No,
those
it's
nice
the
things.
truth.
The house is much more organized. Having the OCD present every day in the home it's quite wonderful.
Our office is much more organized too when we're there.
You touched on something interesting, and the collaboration piece, and you are a pioneer in collaborating with the retailer, and really, you've brought so many great ideas that we can all use. Many entrepreneurs have tried this same path that you forged. What are some things that you would say moving forward we can use to co-create and collaborate with not only retail, we're co-creating with our consumers because of e-commerce. Like, what does that look like now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I don't think we'll ever spend as much time physically with retail buyers as we did. As much as we would like to, I think they've all discovered the efficiency of Zoom and the ridiculousness on our part to fly 2 days for a 1-hour meeting. So I think that's here to stay. And what's been really interesting so far is it's so much more personal. When you're sitting there talking to a buyer, like you're in their home, they're in your home. And what I've seen is not working are big group Zooms with retailers, like really hard to present. And selling is nothing more than a transfer of emotion. It's really hard to do that over Zoom. And we use a lot of creativity and props to collaborate with retailers, and that's really hard to do over Zoom. So we haven't figured it out yet, but we are seeing that retailers are looking to go deeper with the partnerships that they have than broadening, which I think is going to be a lot harder for new brands and new entrepreneurs to get distribution without somebody helping guide them to that right person. And then from a collaboration piece, when we do get together, it's going to be a lot more special, and we're going to have to put a lot more work into it. We've always taken the collaboration approach with retailers where, we call it going deckless. We try to always not take them through a deck, and we have a single sheet of paper. It is a big sheet of paper and it is double-sided. Just our menus, and then we just build everything out in the room in physical form, and it creates these very collaborative work sessions. So we will get back to that, but when we do that, it's going to be fewer times a year, and it's going to have to be really, really special to drive the collaboration that we need. And then with teams, I'm not sure yet. We're still figuring that out. I think a lot of innovation's kind of on hold at the moment while we're just keeping the business running, but we're weeks away from needing to start going back into our collaboration mode, and we're in the process of figuring out what does that look like. My guess we'll come together for ideation sessions. We'll probably do more pre-work ahead of time, and when we come together, it's just going to have to be way more productive and meaningful to land the right ideas going forward.
Tara, you're a senior leader at New Hope. New Hope puts on the biggest gathering of the year in the world in the natural products industry, Expo West. And it was quite remarkable this year. Expo West was scheduled for that first week in March, and right up until the very last minute, people were traveling, setting up booths, and we had that dramatic weekend and all the communication on LinkedIn, and suddenly it was canceled.
Right. And when you asked the question, where were you when you really knew? I was in Anaheim, and I was looking at Expo West because it was already set up, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I get chills thinking about it because the production quality and just everyone's so excited. That's a celebration of the year, and everyone getting together. And usually when it's that quiet in Anaheim after Expo West, when it's set up, it's after the event. And you get to relish in the nourishment that just happened. And you feel satisfied and accomplished. And there were just a few of us, and we were just sad. Just sad.
It must have been incredibly surreal, to your point, to see all of that set up, but without the energy of the people, and almost like this instant ghost town. And that must have been absolutely incredible, because it is like, it's such a, it's something we look forward to all year long, and it is it's a big part of our work lives of that event.
What do you think is the future of conferences, Tara, short term and longer term?
Yeah, I mean, resilience has been shown near and far with our colleagues just at New Hope and our larger partner, our parent company of Informa. We're a global event company putting on the largest events in the world in different industries. Health and nutrition is special because it just is about nourishing always. It's not just about that event. That event is wonderful and cumulative, but it's a nourishing community, and we're working hard to figure out how we continue to nourish those emerging brands that really rely on that in-person big event. That's a buy-sell event for them. For a lot of us, a lot of the larger brands at Expo, it's more of just collaborating with your community. It's about those happenstance, get-togethers. But for those emerging brands, it's where the rubber meets the road. So New Hope is working hard to create that virtually until we can gather together again, which we hope is Expo West 2021.
Yeah, hopefully we're all back.
You make a really good point, Tara, the emerging entrepreneurs. Eric, you're really looked up to as a leader in this industry. What advice do you have for the entrepreneurs that are earlier stage, that are going through their growth phase now, that are anxious in the current environment? What would you say to them?
I think obviously we're going into some form of economic downturn, whether it's I think we're all losing any faith it's going to be a V recovery, a U, or a lumpy Nike swoosh, probably more likely at this point. So without a doubt, we're going into this economic downturn, and I think starting a business in recession is by far the best time. It's like vacationing off season. Everything's cheaper, but what it really does is it lines you up properly for an economic cycle to scale as things get good. And we started, Method very much. We launched months right before 9/11 occurred, in the recession that followed, and then going through 2008. And this is in my entrepreneur career will be my third economic downturn. And what I also believe it does is it really forces you to hone your ideas and your point of differentiation. Because if you can get it off in the ground and create traction during a downturn, then as the economy recovers, you are so well poised to scale and grow. And we were talking this weekend about just like, do I really need another quinoa chip? Like, it's become so cluttered with Me Too's, and it's a little bit like a forest fire, right? It kind of burns the underground away so stronger trees can come through. So I think it's really healthy for entrepreneurs that this is occurring, because it's going to clear the space for stronger businesses to emerge. And timing is everything. And I think the timing of starting in a downturn is not something to be feared.
Do you think there's going to be a culling? There's thousands of young businesses in the consumer product space today. Not all of them who need funding right now are going to be able to get funding in this environment. Do you see a culling?
I do. I think there's specific segments that are just way over-skewed and just way too competitive with Me Too, with things that have very little differentiation from each other. And those businesses probably would never, I always call them zombie companies, like they don't really live or die. They just kind of get stuck in that mediocre place. So I think a lot of those companies that probably never would have taken off anyways will just die faster. And hopefully those entrepreneurs will go on to do a new challenge and create space for the ones that really have cracked the differentiation code.
Let's talk about some of the bright spots. Health and wellness. health and wellness has become the number one consumer priority through COVID. Do you think this pandemic is going to result in permanently shifted consumer priorities?
It's hard to see how it wouldn't. I mean, with any, this is a generational event, and it's a shared event. So it's really, really hard to see how that would not have an impact. And, at work, our focus very much, and I was talking before about finding the insight. And so for Olly, the insight was that all generations have a different relationship to health. Millennials very much view health as a lifestyle pursuit. And, design is kind of core to that, a part of lifestyle. And you look at COVID and you ask, what impact is it going to have on that insight and that relationship to health? Is it going to be an accelerator? Is it going to be more cyclical or systematic changes to it? And I think it's just a great accelerator, because now we are forced to have health be a bigger part of our lives. So we do want to put our own form of self-expression on it. We do want to bring it into our lifestyle instead of us having to adapt into the healthcare system, right? Just not very aspirational. So I very much see that as an accelerator of our core thesis of how we think about the relationship that our consumer, both in Olly and Welly, has to health.
So you see a very bright future for the health and wellness, the health and nutrition industry.
I do, and I see it taking on, like I said, a little bit of a different posture. I think living in California, we see that here from, when medical first arrived. You're like, oh my God, a doctor's office where I don't feel more like I'm going to a spa than a medical practitioner's office. And we've seen that in dentistry, and that's already shift has been very much underway. I think we just see an acceleration of that.
One thing that, we've been watching evolve is this large corporation mindset of grow big but stay small, because they want to be nimble and they want to innovate. And these companies that we know are growing are nipping at their heels, and now that consolidation and a lot of that is going to go away, do you see the larger players stepping up with their supply chains and just being very conscious of local sourcing and trying to really capitalize on that now that we've learned these lessons?
Yeah, I think it's good. That might be a little bit more cyclical than again, you look at the broader shift that was underway, which was a shift towards local. And local was manifesting itself in everything from it's artisanal to I bought it at the farmer's market. I think COVID accelerates that shift. I mean, as we're all spending more time in our neighborhoods, right? Majority of us, I believe, have been really trying to support our local businesses more. There's a greater appreciation for them. I mean, in our neighborhood, we've already watched 3 stores gone, and we're fearful for Main Street to lose more. So I think there's going to be a temporary, and Bain's got a really wonderful study on emerging brands, and they show that these legacy brands have had a bump up. I think there is a little bit of that nostalgia. Like, I think we've been eating probably a little bit more Kraft macaroni and cheese with the kids than I would normally like. But there's a little bit return to that nostalgia, and their supply chains are robust. I think that's cyclical. I don't think I think we'll shift back to much more about that sense of local and knowing the person behind it. And as our government is truly failing us, businesses and brands that you can believe in will continue to emerge as the heroes.
Do you think that there's going to be a greater prioritization from consumers on mission or purpose-driven brands resulting from this major event?
I do. I think it was getting a bit saturated. Every brand, every product has a story. And we're seeing that probably manifest, particularly through social media and Instagram and newer ways of knowing who's behind it. But I think more than ever, there is this craving of not the what, but the why. And the why behind a brand. And as more and more products lack any form of differentiation, as naturally categories mature and they become more commoditized, what does separate it is the why. And that shift was very much underway, and I don't see COVID having a negative impact on it. I only see it as an accelerator towards that once we kind of come out of this this current environment that we're in right now, which is a little bit more about survival.
So Eric, I didn't see any golf clubs on the way in, so it doesn't look like you want to retire anytime soon. Tell us about Welly.
Yeah, so Welly is child number 3, and it was really born out of a request initially from Target, which was Brian Cornell. We were having dinner and asked, what opportunities do you feel like we're missing at the intersection of health and beauty? And so we're in the store and we're like, well, that one, first aid's kind of right in the middle, and it is a little bit of health and it is a little bit of beauty. I mean, it's one of the few healthcare products you actually wear, and that's a form of expression. Kids are a little bit more at expressing through bandages than adults are. So that kind of became the clue to dig here. And kind of going back to that model, big category, about $4 billion in the US, fairly attractive margins. What's the cultural shift they missed? And our belief was this, really driven by Instagram and millennials, is, a life fully lived, right? And so we really looked at the category much more that an injury should be a trophy of a life well lived. And so we kind of started from that insight that it should be much more of a accessory, and really turning first aid into more of a lifestyle accessory. And then we always start to unpack it on the product experience. We don't want to win on an attribute, because if you create a brand on an attribute, the legacy players can just copy you like that, and you quickly have a lot of headwinds. So we want to win on experiences. So we started thinking about the experience of first aid. And for those of you with kids, and unfortunately you never not need first aid in an urgent situation. And having a kid scream at you while they're bleeding because you can't find the bandages is no fun. So we thought more about the dissatisfaction of like how we store these things, and we thought a lot about how a lot of us probably had grandmothers who kept safety pins and buttons in old first aid tins. So we want to bring the tin back, and you see everything we do is kind of a single stroke idea. So the tin was about bringing back durability, making it waterproof, easy to stack, easy to store, but it also gave us this canvas to really bring the designs to life in a way that you can't just on the little bandage. And then we thought through the whole system. From efficacy, there's different types of bandages. We leaned a lot into fabric. It just feels better. And then we realized we couldn't find anybody who has that perfect bandage skin tone. So why have skin tones at all? Make it more expressive. And I think that was the biggest rule we broke, that we were a little nervous about breaking. And you won't find us in flesh skin tones, and it has not slowed us down.
I mean, you're right. The OTC category has not experienced much disruption to date. On the ingredient side, which is tough because it's defined by monograph, but also on the branding side. So I think that it's a welcome concept right now, and we'll all be watching with a lot of excitement.
I was very grateful for Welly at the beginning of this, because I have a new puppy who scratched me right on the nose, and right before Zoom calls became just a mainstay in your day. So I could use fashionable Welly bandages every day and bring my Zoom calls to life. Everybody had something to talk about. I felt more confident, and so I'm grateful for Welly providing me fashionable bandages.
Thank you. When I spot them in the wild, I'm always so excited. One of the insights we figured out is we originally created our kids line, and I was actually on a chairlift, and I looked over, and this woman who was ski patrol, she had the monster one wrapped around her finger. I was like, that's my bandage. And she was raving about it, and we realized more and more the adults were buying the kids one, so we just took kids off of it. And it's really kind of changed the category. But one of the other rules we broke was everything for kids is licensing, right? Mm-hmm. Everything has a character on it, and we kind of believed millennial moms were ready for things that were not some licensed character, but were just great design. And our unicorn is the #1 selling kids bandage at Target today.
Eric, you talk a lot about millennials. And we hear a lot about baby boomers. What happened to Gen X? Have we just been banished into history?
We're just pinned between boomers and their children. We really don't have a voice.
Boomers are not
The
all
latchkey kids.
I like to think we're the ones doing all the work.
We really are like getting screwed by these two generations around us. No, it's look at, there's so many great Gen X entrepreneurs out there. A lot of them have done econ, really timing's everything right. And from Tony Hsieh at Zappos, and it's just a lot of Jeff, they're all, that generation left its mark on e-commerce and a lot of tech. I mean, look at Elon Musk, so I think our generation really is leaving a mark. We're just not as loud about it.
Let's talk about e-commerce a little bit. Clearly, with the great quarantine, a lot of people have not wanted to leave their homes, and people who were comfortable using Amazon or going direct to companies' websites have increased their purchases online, and a whole lot of new users who had never used Amazon are using Amazon for the first time. What do you think about the future of the retail store vis-a-vis the future of e-commerce?
Great question. And again, COVID is fascinating in just looking at who's on the right side of the digital divide. So all the companies so far, the retailers that have declared bankruptcy, all of them had just failed to really be able to make the right shifts to win in e-commerce. And they would have died anyways, and we're just seeing an acceleration towards that. I think we've all agreed that D2C is not as exciting as everybody thought. And I know it's because the consumer doesn't think that way. You don't look at, when I would see for the first time, Quip toothbrushes at Target, my initial thought wasn't oh, that cool D2C brand is now here. You're like, oh, that cool toothbrush is now here. And omnichannel is obviously the real winning play. And how you make those things work together. And I'd even take a step further. I think it's really mono-channel, of how do you create mono-channel experiences for consumers. And just talking to Zach on the way out, he was talking about mountain biking, and he had to go to REI to pick something up. I was like, I was like, are they open? He's like, no, but you just order online. They give you a code, you swing up, they bring it out to you, that curbside pickup. That's not going to go away. That's amazing. And he's like, it's better than Amazon. So I think we're going to now see, where we would have gone to anyways, a real blurring of the role of physical in e-commerce. And when you do go to a store, you're going into a store for the experience. And today, to win in physical retail, it's got to deliver an experience. And that experience could be just an incredibly enchanting retail boutique with great service, or it could be walking into a Target that always has something new to discover, great merchandising, and a real breadth of fun stuff. But I think we're now seeing mono-channel is really the way forward.
New Hope was founded on the natural grocers across the country, and we've been really stepping up our game to provide that education and content to help them survive in this and learn how to do e-commerce, because they have been hesitant. We still have Natural Foods Merchandiser, a physical magazine that we have retailers just longing for it every month. They love getting that physical copy. And so we're trying to help them transition, because to your point, there's a new sheriff in town, there's a new way to do business, and they've always created a special experience, but we're helping them transition to that online education as well.
Yeah, I think it's just very, very healthy to kind of force us to break some old habits fast and to adopt to a new world. So I think it's exciting. It's going to have an exciting impact on the industry. It's going to be painful the next few years, but we're going to come out of it, I think, a much stronger industry.
Let's talk about philanthropy. You've always built businesses that are mission and purpose driven, and I know that giving back's always been important to you. Do you think that the pandemic is going to influence the way people think about philanthropy, change it in any ways, increase it?
I think in the short term it's really hard. So much of fundraising occurs, again, back to that transfer of emotion and really bringing people around a united cause in person with a lot of passion. we're probably a year away from being able to do those types of events. And even the little things like my kids' school auction, it's just not the same to get people to dig deeper in their pocket when they're not around other people with that level of emotion. Just as human beings, unfortunately, we're wired that way. And then now more than ever, we've got so many competing interests that truly need support and help out there. So again, I think it's going to be more of a shift away from believing in our government and more into looking to the private sector. And so if you can buy from a brand that is doing good and is purpose driven, and your little actions every day do help society as a whole, yeah, I think that is going to be for consumers a lot more motivating for them. And a lot of, unfortunately, I know a lot of charities are really going to struggle for the next year. So we're going to need brands and companies to do their part.
I've been encouraged by the spotlight and the appreciation of all the frontline workers. Just on my flight out here, it was me and a lot of medical workers, but there was an announcement and we did a round of applause on the plane after we landed for all the medical workers that were on board, and it was quite an emotional experience. And it's been great to see one of your affiliation organizations, Unilever, do so much for the frontline workers as well. Yeah,
no, Unilever's been just tremendous in their role as a global citizen. And even like we were one of the first to pull out of Expo, and at the time I was like, oh God, are we overreacting? Is this? And they did it for the safety of the team members. And they truly believed that it wasn't safe to bring all of us together in that environment with what was going on. And they made the brave, hard call. Like, we had a lot of sunk cost. And I was fearful we were going to be only booth not there. And what statement was that going to make? And I got to give them credit. They were ahead of it, and they followed their values and made the hard decision. And they did it pretty effortlessly by being very, very values driven.
Unilever has partnered with New Hope in some interesting ways over the last 2 years on telling their story to this community in a unique way. They've leaned in to really understand and build that empathy within the corporate organization for why this stuff matters and why it matters to the consumer, why it matters to the retailer and the community at large. So Unilever has been another one of those pioneers that really has looked at their environmental footprint and engaged the community to see how they could do better. And they've used a lot of our platform, that New Hope platform, to tell that story. So yeah, they're a great company.
Yeah, and they're supporting a B Corp, and it's tremendous. And it's not easy to do in that global scale and the complexity that they deal with. But we're just proud to be part of the Unilever family.
Eric, what advice would you give to a working parent through this time?
What advice I have for me? Jesus, it's not easy. And we're going into summer too, and camps are canceled, and I don't know. It's it goes back to, I guess, your values and what you prioritize. And it's like, I can screw up at work for a while. I can't screw up with my kids. Like, that has to be the priority. And at Olly and Welly, we've just really worked to allow people to make sure they focus on their families first. Because if their families fall apart, there's no way you can ask somebody to ever perform at their best. I think a little bit about it is like how TV used to be before TiVo. Again, if you're a millennial, you probably don't know what TiVo is. Where you had to set your schedule around when a show came on. Mm-hmm. And that's how work always has been. And for us working parents, I think one of the gifts that has come out of this is we're able to set work a little bit more around our schedule. We can get up early, or before the kids do get work. Yeah. And so we do have a more fluid work style that is allowing us to be present for our kids, spend more time with them. And we've always called it a great juggling act, and I think more than ever we're truly seeing it. But man, I do not have advice, because I'm like doing everything I can to keep my head above water, of keeping 3 little people happy, healthy, in homeschooling, while also ensuring we're doing our best to keep the businesses moving forward.
What I found has been very nice is that everybody understands that, and people are a little more forgiving if there is an issue with a work-related project or a timing issue, or if a child runs behind a Zoom, it's to be expected, and people have been very understanding of that, which is very heartwarming to me. But I think at the end of the day, everyone agrees with you that people's families come first, and they have to.
Yeah, it's been one of the kind of pleasant little surprises out of this is I would have been embarrassed before if my kids were doing something in the background when I'm supposed to be in the office and I'm out working from home on a Zoom call. And now it's enduring. Like people, like when you see someone else's kids or someone else, even their kid is acting out, everybody is so supportive of that, and it's a very different approach to life-work balance. And I always said you can never get balance, over days or weeks. The balance has to kind of come over months, and there's times where you just really unplug for a while, and there's times where you're grinding. And the real secret to work-life balance is we're now so tethered to work by our phones that work has creeped into our personal life, that the only way to make it work is our personal life has to creep into our professional life. And I think that's kind of accelerated that belief for me.
Are you able to separate the two at home, or are they melded together, your personal life and your work life? Are you able to switch off at a certain time every night? I
have very actively trying to switch off at 5, go for a walk with Jill or the kids, with the dog, like really try to set, begin cooking for the night, really set that day part that we're moving, and we have more time during the day for the most part to get a lot more done. So I am trying to do that. Throughout the day, it unfortunately is a little bit of a fluid juggling act. Get a kid set up on Zoom Tutor, jump on a call, back. That's just the way life is right now.
Eric, I've got a very serious question to ask you. On a typical working day, sweatpants or hard pants?
Oh, sweatpants.
Sweatpants.
Yeah. Especially Aviator Nation's done a great job of stepping up that look, particularly here in California. And I appreciate COVID for making sweatpants now socially acceptable to wear all the time.
Well, Aviator Nation's become hip on the East Coast now through the quarantine. It's all over my neighborhood in Connecticut.
They're having their moment. They're for sure having their moment right now. And so much. I tried to get the Ninja sweatshirt and it was sold out already.
Oh, I got the last one.
You can't go wrong with the Patagonia onesie.
That is, I didn't even realize Patagonia made a onesie. Yeah, I'm curious how our dress is going to go back, whether we're going to be craving the ability to like put on real clothes again, or if now it's like comfort is best.
What about you, Tara? Sweatpants or?
Then Patagonia onesie.
Patagonia onesie?
Patagonia onesie. It serves all masters. It's very comfortable. It's environmentally friendly. I love it.
So Eric, any new hobbies, activities that you and your family have picked up during your non-work time?
We've got a couple. And I do not get credit for this other than paying the bills. My daughter and Jill have built a really cool garden, which has been super rewarding to watch them build. I've got personally into mountain biking by getting an electric mountain bike, which is like having a chairlift in the backyard with Mount Tam, and it's just an absolute blast, and it's a great way to clear my head as I need to. And definitely backyard sports. The kids and I have been just doing a lot of, and daily bike rides, and it's been so fun too. You look around the neighborhood and you see families together, and now groups of kids together who would have been completely overscheduled, and it's kind of like 1970s again. And I hope we don't lose that when this is over. Like, I want some of those activities back in our life, but I do not want to go back to that crazy, overscheduled world that we were living in.
I agree with that. It's just our worlds have become too busy. My wife Sophie and I talk about that a lot, that we don't know how we kept going. We both work, we both travel. We've got 4 children who are going to school and playing soccer and ice hockey competitively. And this 3-month break we've had from it all has been great and very interesting. And we will try to take some of it with us into the future. I don't recall period of my life where I was able to have dinner with my children every single night for 12 weeks in a row.
Yeah. It's I've heard this said well, which is like nature is a great healer. So like we're heading up to Tahoe tonight. We're going to homeschool there for the next 3 days. The kids can, shockingly, they can still go sledding up at 7,000 feet after doing their schoolwork or ride bikes. And so we've really been trying to be outdoors and in nature more. And I think it is a wonderful healer. And I think COVID is a lot of just nature fighting back. And you can see all the benefits back to the health of our planet because of us all idling a bit more than having the time to enjoy the outdoors. And the great thing of outdoor activities is you actually get to do it with your children. You know, I can't play soccer with them, but I can go skiing, biking, hiking, sailing. I can do those things with them. So I think that's also been really wonderful, watching that evolve out of this again. And hopefully that will come back to our industries too, of a greater sense of importance for the environment and you know, supporting companies that do their best to do the right thing.
Eric, is there anything else you would like to say right now in this environment to our audience?
It's a cliche, but I always have loved the phrase, never waste a good crisis. And asking yourself, what's possible today that wasn't possible yesterday? So I probably have more FOMO than fear right now of all the opportunities that are going to emerge. It's almost like we're nothing more than an ant farm and somebody just shook it up. And we get to rebuild it in new ways that are hopefully better ways. And something we've been working with our teams that I recently learned that Churchill and Roosevelt essentially, Tim at Allbirds shared this story with me, that they had the foresight in the middle of World War II, when they were really fighting for survival, to create the vision for the UN. And something he shared with me that I've been sharing with my teams that really struck with me is like, great leaders don't wait for the crisis to end to plan the future. They plan the future while they're in the crisis, because when you're in the crisis, you've got better foresight to truly see what you need to come out of it. And when you can share that with your teams of how you're going to emerge out of this stronger and better, it really helps them to get through this crisis. So that's something that's really struck me right now, that I'm taking a lot of comfort in, that we can start laying the groundwork for a better future now, and we don't have to wait for this crisis to end.
I couldn't agree more. Eric, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's always great to see you, but that was a wonderful discussion.
No, thank you for having me, and so good to see humans in person. Wonderful. Come back soon.